Gosh, thank you guys so much. As I've told some of you, I can't wait to hear what I have to say because I have not been able to put a speech together. It has been the most bizarre thing. I typically write up my speeches. I have everything outlined and so forth. I must have tried 18 to 20 times before this evening, during this evening, to get something together. So my dictate was to share the past with you. So I hope you want to hear about the past, and it's more than just the past of the PD. This is starting when I was 14 and a half years old, which is when I dove into this business with Mr. Monroe. He had put a reel-to-reel tape deck next to my bed. And on the tapes were these strange sounds that were interesting. They would help me relax, help me go to sleep. And every once in a while there would be a bell. And when the bell dinged, he had put an affirmation on it for me. And the affirmation is one I remember to this day. I choose to know and understand myself to the extent that I can have complete control of myself. Now, for an almost 15-year-old kid, this was pretty heady stuff, you can imagine. And so here was this man who was a friend of the family's, and I found him to be absolutely magical. He was a mentor, a friend, and then in 1971, he became my stepfather. He had been helping my mother write a book. She was writing a book called The Ice Clock at the time. And sorry to say, the book didn't take off, but they did. Okay? They ended up getting married. It was February 6, 1971. And that was the same year that he published Journeys Out of the Body. So now things were getting interesting because we were talking about these very fascinating experiences going beyond the physical self. And so as a kid, learning about how we could be bigger, how we were more than our physical bodies, I've had this all my life. And also how to get, what did he call it? The different overview, a greater overview. Okay? Very important stuff. So to skip ahead a little bit, when I graduated from school, I went to Wittenberg University in Ohio. And in fact, Bob had suggested I go there. He had played in a band there when he was a kid. You'll recall he went to Ohio State. And so that's how I ended up there. And I started answering his fan mail for Journeys Out of the Body. That's how it started. And then well, actually, I have to go back a year. In 1973, because his book had become so popular, he was asked to go to Esalen to give a program. And so he and a man by the name of Bill Yost, who was an engineer from FSTC, that's the Foreign Science and Technology Center in Charlottesville, went to Esalen in California and gave the first program, 1973. It went 24 hours a day, you guys. It was a weekend program, and they would just take breaks to go to the bathroom, eat, maybe have a few small naps. And we used to have a picture here. Does anyone know what happened to it? And it had a picture of Bill and Bob sitting there like this in their chairs, and everyone laid out on their mattresses with the headsets. So that was the first program. That became so popular, people started calling. They got his name, and at this point he had started Whistlefield Research Labs, always plural. Did you ever notice that? Never singular. It's Whistlefield Research Labs. And it was in a modular home that he had built. Being the entrepreneur he was, he had also started a modular home building company called Process Builders. And so he built this house, or had it built, and he turned it into our lab. We had 3 isolation booths, a control room, a couple of offices. The living room was our meeting room, a loft, kitchen, bathroom. And so what happened is people started finding out about this, and they started coming and trying out these weird sounds that were to help them maybe leave their bodies like Bob did. 2 of the first people were friends of Bill Yost. One's name was Tom Campbell. You may have heard of him. The other, Dennis Menerick. Dennis is the one who first turned Bob onto binaural beats. He brought him an article that was written in the IEEE journal on this topic. And then Tom Campbell, the physicist philosopher, I'm sure you all are aware of him, And to his credit, he now goes and gives his own workshops out there in the world. And so they would get into all these philosophical discussions, and that's where the sounds were being tweaked. Bob would be in the control room doing this. We were all in the booths, and we all being Nancy Penn Monroe, my siblings, friends, anybody who could bring in. We were all guinea pigs. And we were listening to these, and he taught us how to report what was going on. You know the old reach back and use your vocal cords in your physical body and report. And so that is how, you guys, focus states got started. Focus 10, of course, you all know what these are, but focus 17 in those days was the state in between lifetimes. I kept overshooting it. And so I always ended up in the death process, and it was very interesting to me. I couldn't get in between times. We have something now, right, in one of our programs where there was a time between lifetimes. Well, I ended up being hanged, being blown up in a tank on a desert, male at that time, being in like a tower. I was in a duchy somewhere, and instead of getting hanged, I decided to jump out the window. You know, interesting death kinds of experiences. Thomas Hatzenberger and Luigi were talking about the lucid dreaming program yesterday. I guess that was just yesterday. And it seems like those might be good preparation for some of the work you all do there. So anyway, we were doing all these, and we came up with this new program, and we called it, that is to say, Bob decided to call it the M5000. Okay? The M5000 was intended to, again, same thing as now, take people into these different expanded states of consciousness. The reason it was 5,000 is Bob wanted to train 5,000 people, and he was hoping to find some good out-of-body explorers, some good psychics, some good people who had talent in these areas. And if he just waited, I would have told him I was going to marry one later on in life, you know, bring him home with me. But anyway, so it was the M5000. We also had another company called Mentronics at the time, and it had as its logo some little sine, well, it wasn't sine wave. What do you call this kind of wave? Sine wave is this, and anyway, it was very technical looking. Medtronics, which you may have heard of, took exception to us and sued us. We won. And so Mentronics was supposed to make the CDs, tapes at the time. He also had another company at the time called Eastern States, because he got involved with some natural soil inoculant. So here we were, involved with many, many things. Then it came time to start taking these out on the road. And well, we had some here first because we gave some in the Holiday Inn on top of the mountain. I would get a harness and make it in between the rooms, and Tom and Dennis and I, and sometimes Bob at this point, would give the programs together. Then it came to the point where we needed more help, and we got Chris Lenz from California to join us, and he had a friend by the name of Karen Malik, and she joined us, and she got trained. And to her credit, now she is also giving programs in Bali and I think other places as well. So it started expanding and expanding. We have had so many fascinating people come through here. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is one of them. Everyone, of course, knows Elizabeth or knows of her work anyway. And she came to the lab, and she went into the booth, and I got to be the person in the control room. I was so excited. So I was doing the sounds, and Bob had a very strong rule. Never leave anyone out there more than 45 minutes. So she's in the booth, and I'm watching the thing, and I'm doing it, and I said, okay, it's time to bring her back, and I bring the sounds down. It's time to come back, Elizabeth. Now count down from 12 back to 1, focus 12. And she got furious with me. It had been her first out of body. And she said, I don't want to come back. And I said, you will come back now to focus 1. Well, she really was quite angry with me. I don't think she ever forgave me for that. It became a joke later on. She even had it written in one of her interviews in some magazine. And this girl brought me back from my experience. But you know, we had some really interesting people. Eddie Albert, The older folks here should know who that was. Remember Green Acres? I got to put him through the sessions, also one-on-one in the lab. John Voigt was at one of our programs out in Montana. Feathered Pipe Ranch was the name of it. We've had some really fascinating people. You all have heard of McDonnell Douglas. Mr. Mack came through. In fact, I think he may have even offered us some of his old equipment. So many people were attracted to Bob. Hal Putoff, Russ Targ of SRI, who were at that time probably doing the remote viewing research. This was back in the mid-'70s, and they were coming through. So all these fascinating people, many psychics, many dowsers, many gifted people, all coming to see what Bob had to offer. All right. So now we come into, let's see, about late 90s. I decided it was time to leave. It was time to leave the Institute and go show that I was more than just the daughter helping out. So I went and got into publishing. Ended up in the San Francisco Bay Area, did that for 4.5 years. And then it so happened that the companies got changed around, and this ended up being the center of my territory. So now I was with John Wiley and Sons. So I moved to Nellie's Ford. And in 1983, Bob Monroe and a gentleman who was very helpful to him, Maury Coleman, who used to have what was then what became the B&B, asked me to come back as the director. So I did. I came back as the director for about 7.5 years. Bob was able to finish his second book, and I was able, while he was writing his book, to be a good director of the place. We got it into the black for the first time, and here was Bob all these years, money out of his pocket all the time, providing for this place. So then we started talking about, well, what if we were a 501c3? Then we could get donations. You see, wouldn't that be nice? So December 1st, 1985, we became the Monroe Institute. Now you have to understand there are a bunch of names in between time. Whistlefield Research Labs, then became Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences, then became the Monroe Institute, all right? But also within that we had, Interstate Industries. Y'all can imagine why it was called Interstate Industries. Remember the whole thing about don't get involved with local traffic, take the interstate, okay, all right? And so then it became necessary for the two companies to separate. It's all these lovely worlds we have in our culture about nonprofits. There's this woman here. If it were not for her, this place would not be here. You do realize that, don't you? Robert Monroe had the vision, but without her help, and I must add also Charlie Tart. You all know Charlie is kind of like the grandfather of parapsychology. He was the one who said, Bob, you have got to publish your notes about the out-of-body experiences. And it is because of Charlie. In fact, I think Charlie sent Bob's manuscript to Doubleday, and that's how it got published. So if it hadn't been for Charlie and my mom, I really don't think we would be here. So then, let me see, where were we? 83. And so we become the nonprofit. And then we started the Gateway Outreach Program in about 1986, was it, Francine? I think that was about it. 1987, around that.
I think we started in 85.
Was it that soon?
With the very first.
Okay. So yeah, we brought in a gentleman by the name of James Jones to help design the program, and then he brought in Francine. That's when Francine first got here, to train the Gateway Outreach Program, because you know Bob's thing about get it out there. And so again, trying to expand our efforts and really to go global, which is one of my personal interests as well, getting this information out there. So the Gateway Outreach Program, and I'm trying to think what other important things. We had some, oh yeah, some good rumors going on then at the time. Y'all would love these, and earlier too. You have to understand we're in a community that wasn't used to this kind of thinking, you know, out-of-body experiences and weird stuff. So the rumor was we were taking brains from one person and putting them in the heads of other people. That was one. The other was that we were stealing souls and also putting souls into different bodies. And we were doing it all on top of Afton Mountain, you see, because of course that's where we had some of the programs. We also wired a little motel. It used to be called the Tuckahoe Motel. I forget what it's called now. It's right on the way going up the mountain, on Afton Mountain. And we had each room wired so that people could be in their own rooms, and we had the control room, and they would take the program that way. So, now let's see, in the 80s, then skipping ahead, and actually I have to mention this. So in 1985, Les, that's when you came along, is that right, 86? So Gene Wallace had been taking care of the professional division at that point, and then Leslie came in. And it was such a delight having this young woman from New Jersey join us. And one of my favorite memories with Les is we had a guy from Virginia Tech come. And you know Virginia Tech is one of those land grant schools, and they do, check the dirt and all this kind of stuff. And so Leslie had heard about all the rumors going on, and she came into my office and she said, Scooter, there's this guy here. He's taking soul samples. And I went, soul samples? Doing what? And she says, yes, he's taking. And I said, okay, let me come out. So I go out and I said, excuse me, sir, may I help you? Yes, ma'am. I'm from Virginia Tech and I'm taking soul samples. And I want to know. That was such a fun time. I really love that. So, all right. So anyway, now Bob had finished writing his book, and when he got finished writing his book, he wanted to get more involved with managing along with me in the Institute, and of course, as ever, brilliantly opening up to all kinds of new ideas and so forth. But it came to a point where it was clear I needed to move on and do my own thing. And of course, astrology has always been a passion of mine. Bob didn't take too much to astrology. That's kind of an understatement. He didn't think anything of it at all. But so at that point, I decided to leave. But the one person who stayed throughout, do you all know who this is? He started at the beginning. He's still here today, 42 years later, and it is Mr. George Durrett, right? Now, George, I met George when I was like 18 or 19 years old. George did everything for Bob. And in fact, does this look familiar to any of you who ever worked with Bob? Remember him with his yellow pads, and he always had his big black felt marker. And what I have here, George let me borrow this. This is something Bob wrote up about all that George did for him. And he starts with his very first memory of George, which was making special hamburgers at Hojo's, Howard Johnson's. Then Whistlefield cows, Whistlefield horses, build Whistlefield stable, build Whistlefield ring, and on and on and on, okay, etc. Can you see this? Everything gets down to number 90. 1988, go to football games. Probably so he could go with Bob. You turn the page, 1997 it says, now still doing all the above and more. L.A. Monroe. This is from Laurie. And it's so cute because Laurie signed her name with the 3 7s, just like Bob's. So let's talk about the directors for a second. So after Bob left us in March 17th, 1995, Laurie very kindly came in and took over and was our director. And all of you who knew Laurie knew her spark, her vivacity. She had a youthfulness about her, a real go-get-'em type of energy. And bless her, she was here until, was it 2006 that she left us? And at that point, then I think Skip filled in. And Skip, bless him, had had that long, long relationship with Bob, with the Institute for so many years. And he had that more scientific, cerebral approach, and that was very good, very settling, at which point then we brought in Paul Rademacher, I believe. And Paul, wish I had his eloquence. He can speak like, well, he's a good preacher, what can I say, you know? And he, with his sensitivity, brought a lot to us as well. So then after Paul, I think Skip filled in again a little bit, did he not? And then we had Carol Savic de la Haran come in. And Carol, I still have boxes and boxes and boxes of files and projects that this very multi-talented, multitasking woman had started. And my hat is off to her. she was probably putting in 15-hour days. I do dare say she worked 7 days a week most of the time. And so a lot of what has gotten started is thanks to Carol. And then after Carol left, Walter Stock was kind enough to come in and help us out too. And he had the financial expertise, something I surround myself with people since that is not my particular forte. And his heart, he had gotten so much from his program and learning about love and whatnot, so we appreciate very much what he did. And now here I am, back after almost 24 years. God, it's almost a quarter century. It's hard to believe. And this is very surprising to me. I may be an astrologer, but I did not know this was going to happen, okay? I did know that there was something that was going to be very unexpected occurring to my career. Well, my career was doing astrological sessions with people. And when Virginia Colburn and Albert Dahlberg asked me if I would be willing to do so, it felt like, yeah, it's time. All right, I'm ready. And so now that's pretty much the past piece. And I'm also, which I didn't know at the time, supposed to give you the State of the Union address. If you're, actually, Jenna, you kind of did it earlier. So, you told very nicely, briefly, what was going on. But just to add a couple of more things, again, this outreach, getting what we do, this whole consciousness expansion out across the world. And one of the places it's quite heavily done is in Japan right now. And Moss, whom Francine has worked with a lot, in fact has even gotten an article, a study in the International Journey of Physical Sciences. Now, I find the study most interesting. The study of meditators' effect on the gases of cucumbers. Not from cucumbers, of cucumbers, okay? And this is while the meditators were using HemiSync, and she will explain that, yes, later on in the program at some point. But right now, what we have, and this is so exciting to me, because remember, I came from when we were doing maybe 3 to 5 programs a year. This year alone, we have 54 programs planned here, 49 programs in 11 different countries. And of course, that also is the Japanese gateway going on. The new programs we're looking at, the advanced remote viewing, that will probably be coming next year, depending on when Mr. McMoneagle gets his outline in for what he wants to do with that. The lucid dreaming experimental program coming in April. And by the way, that's by invitation only. And so if anyone, I think this group is included in that. So I don't know if you've gotten the notice or not, but we're only putting that out to certain people, and you are invited in that. We have 16 residential facilitators, along with Bill Buellman, whom we'll be hearing from tomorrow, Peter Russell, Raymond Grace, the Dowser, 14 off-campus facilitators. We now have 117 outreach facilitators. We have excursion workshops given in 27 states and 28 countries this past year. We have 59 local chapter networks with 25 chapters in the United States and 17 in different countries. You guys got to understand, this is so exciting for me. This makes my heart feel really good. We have also got CEUs, continuing education units, getting certified and recertified, so that's going on. Okay. A lot of people said, well, what's your vision? My vision so far has been, okay, let's get everything stabilized, let's get everything strong. And so they're saying, what are you looking at 5 to 10 years from now? Well, I still want to see us be that world-class leader in the research and education and consciousness, where we're offering programs and products and experiences where people are able to get in touch with themselves like they never have before, like they have here, where they're having those exceptional human experiences, also known as EHE, or the peak experiences. I still think we are the best in teaching people to access, explore, understand, use these states of awareness, of consciousness, of, did we come up with any words for this at our Board of Advisors meeting? We got stuck on consciousness and human potential. So we're open to new words for this if anyone has them, because it's a difficult kind of thing to define. But I have to say, let me see if I can find it here amongst my notes. There's a thing by Deepak Chopra where he defines consciousness. And he says, consciousness is the ultimate reality. It is understanding everything about yourself, creativity, relationships, behaviors. By understanding consciousness, we have the ability to create anything in our world. We can also influence the collective consciousness to bring about personal healing, but also social transformation to heal our wounded planet. So I thought that was a very beautiful explanation of that. So that's what I'm striving towards. There are other things, because I think we're going to be having even more technology that we don't even know how to define yet. We're going to have a facility that you all will be proud of, that will be updated. We've already started the rewiring, thanks to Brian and Bob and others who are helping with the rewiring project of the center. So we're doing many things to start upgrading. As Jonah mentioned, we're also upgrading some programs. So I guess what I'd like to say is Sergey actually gave us our new mission statement, okay? And we wanted to keep it brief. And the new mission statement is, we are more, let's explore. Okay. And this is because I wear so many hats. Angie thought I should wear this evening, but I thought.